Hey bitches, welcome back to another episode of Confessionals. Today's episode is going to be about pretty privilege, and we're going to discuss if we think there's downsides to it because there's been a lot of bitches on TikTok complaining and crying about the downsides of pretty privilege. And I don't know, I feel like I'm always on the fence with these posts because I think women deal with a lot of misogyny, and especially in regards to the way that we look. So sometimes I do want to validate these things that girls say online, but or in person, because that happens a lot too. But other times I feel like it's just a little bit ridiculous, honestly. Like it seems like the women are just fishing for compliments, or they want to talk about it so they believe that they're pretty. Or sometimes I notice that they'll talk about the downsides of pretty privilege because that's kind of their only sense of identity, or they feel flattered by the negative attention that they may receive, or they just want to believe it and they don't. Like they don't truly believe that they're pretty, but they see what they deal with as women, and that reinforces the belief that they want to have that they're pretty. But whatever. Today we're going to discuss if there are downsides to pretty privilege or if it's just misogyny. We're going to talk about pretty privilege across genders and races, and we're also going to talk about the emphasis that we place on beauty. And I've kind of talked about that before, but I want to talk about it a little bit more because this conversation is honestly a little bit tiring. And I want to validate some of it. Like, I don't think it's really black and white because there's people that are really pissed off at those women talking about the downsides of pretty privilege, which I understand. I get, like, I watch those videos and sometimes their demeanor or their facial expressions, like, that just kind of pisses you off because they have that mean girl flavor to the video. Like, they add, like, I don't know, they just have that face, that, like, stuck up face or that weird, like, mean girl face. So I get the frustration. I get it. And sometimes like a lot of the shit they say, like, I hate to see mean comments sometimes, but it's just like you can tell like this girl just wants to believe that she's pretty. Like she's just trying to talk herself into believing that. And it's sad. It's sad, but anyway, I get the frustration. I get it. But I also think there are some downsides to pretty privilege, especially when it comes to being a woman. I think there's downsides to all all the female experience in many different ways that I I think there's downsides to the female experience period, and I think a lot of the downsides have to do with the way that we look, whether we are considered conventionally attractive or we aren't. But yes, without further ado, let's get this episode started. So, are there downsides to pretty privilege? One of the things that women are bringing up online, that they deal with, and that this is a consequence or a downside to their pretty privilege, is the level of harassment that they receive. But I think this one, I get why women say it because sometimes when you are a very attractive woman, you tend to get more attention from people in general. So I think that can contribute to the amount of harassment you receive. But I think for this one, for the most part, it's mostly just straight up misogyny because men will just harass women, period. That's what they do. That's just a given. And it doesn't really matter how you look because if they see a feminine figure walking down their street, they're gonna yell something out. They're gonna harass you, whether it's sexual or just fucking rude. They're gonna do it. And I mean, there's been times where I've gone out looking like fucking Adam Sandler and I still get catcalled the same amount. I still get stares because men don't care about how you look. They just care that you are a woman. Like they're not really, they don't take it that far because what they're running on is like a mindless animal instinct. At this point, I feel like men are not, those types of men are not human because they don't behave human. They don't have the capacity to see women as human beings, and that in itself is inhumane. So I don't consider those men human, and I don't really think they take it that deep to think of like, oh, is this woman attractive enough for me to catcall? No, or to harass. No. They just they just see a woman and they're gonna do it. So I think this mostly has to do with misogyny. And I think a lot of the things that these women posting these videos don't take into account are that non-conventionally attractive women are also getting harassed like on the streets, maybe to the same extent or more than conventionally attractive women, because a lot of the times, even though conventionally attractive women may get more attention because of their looks, they sometimes also get more respect because of their looks. So that's not to say that they receive less harassment, but there's different variables that come into play. And with non-conventionally attractive women, men will sexually harass you and they will just flat out harass you about the way that you look. They'll just be rude to you and they'll call you ugly and they'll call you fat and they'll say all these terrible things to you if you're not conventionally attractive on top of the sexual harassment. And a lot of the times, predators go after people that are not considered conventionally attractive because they think that that person is more likely to keep it to themselves and not tell anybody, or that people are not going to believe them. But there are some downsides that I do want to kind of bring into the light since we're having these conversations. And I do think that with conventionally attractive women, a lot of people like to assume that they're dumb. And this is also everything I'm going to bring up is a misogyny problem. It's all misogyny, but looks are a variable to this, and it's like the way you look kind of dictates the way that the misogyny manifests. So I think a lot of the times men think that women are just dumb in general. But with conventionally attractive women, I think this is a little bit more reinforced because they only see that woman for her looks, and the men have no capacity to see her as a human being or to see women as a human being. So they just see hot, pretty, and they don't think that that woman is capable of anything more than just looking good because they themselves are not capable of seeing women as more than just shells or pieces of meat. So I do think that this is a downside. I think a lot of attractive women are often underestimated and dismissed for being aloof or being uh what's the word? Like for just being dumb, for being aloof, for being airheaded, being dumb. And yeah, I mean, is this a huge downside in comparison to the other things that women have to deal with? I don't think so, but it does suck. And I think it gets bigger whenever we get into the workforce and the corporate field. A lot of women are just miss out on opportunities because of preconceived notions that these men and maybe other women have about them. Another thing that I do think is a downside. I think this is one of the more legitimate downsides to quote unquote pretty privilege as a woman, and that is jealousy from other women. And again, this is misogyny, but because the women are attractive, misogyny manifests in this way when it comes to women and women to other women interactions. And I've seen this happen. I think I avoid it. Like, I just avoid being in circles where people work this way, where people are kind of drawn to jealousy and other toxic behaviors. Like, I avoid these friend circles, but I've seen it I've experienced some of it and I do think it's legitimate. However, I do think that it can be avoided. And I don't think it's as big as an issue as what some women make it out to be. Controversial take, maybe controversial take. Sometimes I think that women like to talk about how other women are jealous of them just to boast about how pretty they are, or just to tell themselves that they're pretty and tell others that they're pretty, and to make themselves feel better about themselves. Is it legitimate sometimes? Yes, 100%. It's happened to me, it's happened to my friends. It is real, and it is terrible that women are treating each other this way. But I think half the time, women are so hyper focused on other women being jealous of them and wanting to be them that they don't have enough energy or mind space to focus on actually making meaningful friendships. I don't think it's that much harder to make friends if you are conventionally attractive. In fact, I think it's easier. There are plenty of women out there who are not jealous bitches. Plenty. Plenty. And some of them may be just as hot as you, more hot, less hot. It doesn't really fucking matter. There's an abundance of women that are not dictated by jealousy or by envy or wanting to be you or wanting to be hot or that are so focused on looks. I think that as time goes by, women are getting better at dismantling those kinds of ideas. In fact, I think it's harder for non conventionally attractive women to make meaningful friendships because women judge. Women judge. And when it comes to the party scene, when a lot of people like to party, and that's fine, right? Like, I like to party. When it comes to the party scene, a lot of women want to hang out with other attractive women to be able to get the perks that misogyny has to offer, the pretty privileges, right? So sometimes, a lot of the times, non conventionally attractive women are left out of friend groups and judged for the way that they look, for their weight, etc. So I think it's the other way around when it comes to friendships. I think non conventionally attractive women may have a harder time. And yeah, again, the whole jealousy thing, is it an issue? Yes. Is it a downside to being considered conventionally attractive that a lot of women will be jealous? Yes. But I don't think it's something to focus on. I think it's kind of weird. Like, I always feel kind of weird when I can tell, like, in my experience, when I can tell somebody doesn't like me and there's really no reason. And you kind of automatically assume that they're jealous of something, whether it's people liking you or the way that you look, whatever, right? You kind of assume that. It's kind of obvious most of the time, but it just feels weird to say it. Like, I don't know why you bitches like to flaunt, like, oh my God, like, it's just everybody's so jealous of me. Like, I don't know. If you're joking, unless you're Charlie XCX, like, shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, tell me you're a superficial ass bitch without telling me you're a fucking superficial ass bitch. Like, who cares? Who cares if somebody's jealous of you? It's not that big of a fucking deal. There's a bunch of shitty people out there that are gonna kiss your ass. Like, that's just equally as bad. Like, these people don't, both of these people, the person kissing your ass and the person that's jealous of you, they are not doing the work to humanize you and to get to know you and to actually spend time with you. So why the fuck do you care? Why the fuck do you care, bitch? It's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking absolutely pathetic and ridiculous to be so focused on you thinking people are jealous of you because you're so fucking hot. Get the fuck over yourself, bitch. Just get the fuck over yourself. I don't know. There's bigger things to worry about. And again, I hate to be redundant, but there is plenty of women out there that you can form genuine bonds with. And the way you look, especially if you're attractive, it's not really that much of an obstacle. Like, you're delusional if you think that is a significant obstacle. And the people that are jealous of you, and let's say that maybe it is a lot of people, You don't want those people in your life in the first place. And maybe you got to change up your environment. I don't know. Do something, because I guarantee that there's plenty of people out there that have done the work to not walk the world being toxic as hoes, and that are going to offer you a real friendship, a real bond. Period, bitch. And also, you don't need that many friends. Like, why do you need 5 different friend groups? You can, you, 3, 4, 5 friends. I think that's more than enough, personally. Personally. The last thing I could ponder in my head as a downside to pretty privilege. It was kind of hard to think of the downsides, honestly. But this one, I think, is honestly the most legitimate one. And it is the identity crisis that comes with being a conventionally attractive person. And I think this applies to both men and women. I don't think this just applies to women. I think a lot of women suffer from this because I think there's more attractive women in the world than there are men. Um, and then also women are conditioned to focus more on their looks. So yeah, I think a true downside to pretty privilege is those attractive people having a severe identity crisis because they themselves only focus and see their value in how attractive they are. And that's all they've been fed. That's all they get from the world. They get all this validation, they get all of this attention that they they think that their main source of value is derived from how beautiful they are. I've never experienced this flavor of identity crisis, but I have seen my very attractive friends deal with this. And damn, I mean, I feel for them because at the source of an identity crisis, especially when you don't even know that you have an identity crisis, is that you are very insecure at the core, and very, very insecure. So I think that's really sad. And it's a true downside because as a beautiful person, you have something that most people don't have. Beauty is like money. It is currency, and it holds value in the world. More value than it should, but it does, and it's a truth. And I think when we're talking about privilege, sometimes with pretty privilege, women miss out on truly juicing out that privilege for their own good, for the greater good. And with a lot of these attractive women, they think that pretty privilege is just about getting attention from men. I'm like, bitch, that is a downside, getting attention from men. Just a downside in general. Like, why the fuck would you want that? Why would you want that? I don't get it. Unless you like the guy, but how many guys do you like? I mean, I don't think most women don't like all men, so whatever. But like when you truly see beauty for what it is from an outside perspective, and you see it as something that does have value, but it's overvalued in society, and you possess that, bitch, juice that shit. Don't be fucking stupid and just use it to boost your own ego from all the male attention you're getting. No, girl, get some fucking money. Get some fucking money, bitch. Don't be fucking stupid. Get some money. And then there's also so many upsides. Like, once you are able to develop a real personality outside of the way you look, people are going to praise that more. Is that good? Is that a good thing? That attractive people get more credit, more attention just because they're good looking? No, not really. But that's the world we live in. So why are you not juicing your privilege? Like that's just another downside to just misogyny, is that beautiful women often don't develop an identity, a personality outside of being hot, that they don't really know how to utilize their hotness and monetize it and even appreciate it, really. Because when you don't have an identity, when you don't have a personality, you can't really appreciate the only thing you have. Like, you think it's the only thing, and there's a sense of emptiness because you feel like there's nothing else to you, or you don't even think about it. I don't know, I just see this with a lot of girls that I know. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It's good to be hot, right? Like it feels good. It's nice. I think it's good for people and women to pride themselves in their looks to some extent, but it's just such a tiny little thing about what makes up a human being. And like, I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't it seems like a waste of time to focus on something so vain, honestly. And you only do a disservice to yourself. At the end of the day, there are no downsides to privilege at all because that would not make any sense. Like, privilege is when you have advantages, and there are really no downsides to having advantages in the world, but I think there are downsides to being an attractive woman, period. Taking the privileges out of the picture, there's just downsides to being a woman, and there are downsides to being an attractive woman, just like there are downsides to being uh an average looking woman and a non-conventionally attractive woman. Like there's downsides to everything, and they all have to do with misogyny. That's a big surprise, right? Misogyny just manifests in different ways with each of those groups of women. Also, I want to mention that a lot of these privileges are just traps for potentially dangerous situations. Or even though they are privileges, they're rooted in misogyny. So it's it's kind of like a shitty trade. For example, if you go to Vegas and you're a hot girl, if you're a girl, period, you're gonna get benefits if you're a girl. But if you're a hot girl, you're gonna have so many perks. Like you're gonna get in all the clubs for free. You might be able to go backstage, skip the lines, all these things. Promoters are just gonna stop you if you're walking down the strip. But the reason for this privilege is because men want attractive women in clubs and they're thirsty, and in Vegas they want to fuck, and sometimes the worst, sometimes a lot of, not sometimes, all the time, a lot of sexual harassment happens in Vegas. So with these privileges you have to be careful because they are, a lot of them are dictated by misogyny. So it's dangerous, and this is, I guess this would be a downside to a privilege, but I don't know. I feel weird calling this a privilege. I think it's just, I don't know, like getting into clubs and getting things from men. Sometimes it's just not worth it. It's just a shitty trade. So is that even a privilege in the first place? That's why you have to be very careful, because it's, you can walk into these potentially great situations, right? And then experience some traumatic shit because of it. So I don't think this is a real privilege. I just think that it's a potentially positive consequence of misogyny. I would phrase it that way. But I don't know. If people want to call it a privilege, yeah, whatever. But most of the time they're just disguised as that when when they might be dangerous. Yeah, I don't know if it's a real good privilege to have, honestly. It's just a shitty trait. Like, okay, I get harassed by men, I don't have equal rights, I get catcalled and treated like shit when I go out in the street, but we'll give you a free bottle. We'll let you into this club. Bitch, what the fuck? Women, we are getting ripped off. At this point, we need all those so-called privileges with protection, with security guards. And we need to be aware ourselves, right? Like at this point, even if we were to have equal rights, we need to keep those rules in place of letting girls in first and letting the gays in too, because the gays need reparations. And yeah, at that point, like that would be reparations. Like keeping the upsides of misogyny, the few advantages of misogyny that we've had, we will need to keep those because those are reparations. That's why I refuse to pay for dates and to go 50-50. Because my life ain't 50-50 with men. When I walk into the street, this shit ain't 50-50. I am not at equal levels with men. I am all the way to the floor, bitch. I'm all the way in hell. So, yeah, that's a conversation for another day, though. That is a conversation for another day. I also do think that we just place so much attention and focus on beauty. It's overhyped, it's overvalued. I think it's valuable, and I was having a conversation with my boyfriend about women complimenting women, and if women complimenting other women just based on their looks reinforces the idea that women are only valuable for their looks. And we were kind of going back and forth discussing this, and I came to the conclusion that no, I don't think it reinforces that when it's a woman complimenting a woman, or a femme complimenting a woman or another femme, because the whole jealousy thing exists. So I think it's empowering to have girls bond and just compliment something that may be a little superficial, but superficial isn't always bad, right? I think it's pretty neutral. And secondly, and most importantly, I think a huge part of femininity is being drawn to aesthetics. So a woman complimenting another woman is just an emphasis of that, on how we appreciate beautiful things and aesthetics. And anybody can have beauty, right? Like, I think the true value of beauty lies in how subjective it is and how diverse it is. And I think the problem nowadays with pretty privilege and being considered attractive in society is that what we considered what we consider attractive and beautiful is so narrow, and not a lot of people can achieve that. And it is also from the perspective of the male gaze, as opposed to when women or gay people and femme people see something beautiful, it's a lot more fucking diverse. So the compliment is just inherently different when it comes from a woman or a femme person. Because when it comes from a man, oh my god. Oh my god, don't even get me started. Like, some compliments are fine. I've received compliments from men that are very nice and flattering and respectful, but I mean, what percentage of all the compliments I've received from men are that? It's a low percentage. It's a very low percentage. So when oftentimes when a man gives a compliment to a woman, he wants something in return. He wants your number, he wants your contact information, he wants to have a conversation with you, he wants your time. Whereas when a woman compliments you, it's just there's nothing in return. Like, a woman wants nothing in return. She's just genuinely complimenting you because she actually appreciates your beauty. So the compliments are very, 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 very different. And at the end of the day, I think that we just place too much emphasis on the way we look, and not just the way we look, but how, like, what we consider beauty, and adhering to that impossible ass standard. It's all men's fault, honestly. Like, I'm just gonna end the episode with that. Like, it's all men's fault. Like, men ruin everything. And yeah, yeah, pretty much. Let us be in charge of the beauty standard. Come on, like, let us be in charge of that. And I promise you, we will reach neutrality when it comes to looks a lot faster if we set the beauty standards, because they're not going to be that big of a fucking deal. It's just going to be like a piece of art that we walk by and we appreciate and we admire, and then we go on about our days. And we don't spend all fucking day focusing on that. Like, yeah, no, no, no. And also, if we're in charge of the beauty standard, let's say, in this metaphor scenario, whatever, where you are looking at a piece of art, let's say one really captures you. If we're in charge of the beauty standard, we're going to think about the history of that painting, of that piece of art. We're going to think of the media that was used for that art. We're going to think of the artist and their vision behind it. Like, the beauty is going to be so much deeper than just like, oh my god, that is so cool, that is so fucking hot, like that's such a cool painting. Yeah, yeah. I'm rolling my eyes at men. I really am. True appreciation for beauty has many perspectives, not just one. And the way that the world generally appreciates beauty now just has one or very few perspectives, and it's all the male gaze. That is all it is. I don't know. Naturally, I can see the male gaze and that perspective, and I can see what they see, right? I think a lot of the times these women are beautiful, like, period, right? But there's plenty of times when I see beautiful people that I'm not attracted to, and I can acknowledge that they are absolutely stunning and gorgeous. Like, and I think with men, the thing that men fuck up with is that the only thing they consider attractive is what they are sexually attracted to. Like that is the main flaw with this impossible beauty standard, is that sometimes our sexual taste is so narrow, but that doesn't mean that our taste for beauty has to also be that narrow, because we don't have to be attracted to everything that's beautiful. We just have to acknowledge that it has beauty. And I think the way that a lot of women and femme people and gay people see beauty is it's just so, there's so much variety, there's so much diversity, and it makes room for other things. It makes room for people of different backgrounds, different races, different shapes. Like, it's just, and what somebody finds beautiful, you don't have to find beautiful. Like, it's all fucking subjective. Like, it could all be so simple. It could all really be so fucking simple, where it's just something that we appreciate if it's in our taste, and then we go on about our day, focusing on more important things. Simple as fucking that. I also want to bring up, because like always, this episode is going to go overtime, is that pretty privilege looks so different amongst genders. So fucking different. Men can appreciate their own beauty, and their beauty can be appreciated by others, but they still have the liberty to focus on other things. In fact, they are encouraged to focus on other things because their beauty uplifts them in society. The benefits and the privileges that beautiful men have in comparison to beautiful women are ginormous. Ginormous, because more often times beautiful men are seen as more intelligent, they get more attention, more serious attention, whereas women are often seen as dumb, underestimated, and get negative attention, get sexualized attention. Also, attractive men are often loved and valued by both men and women. Everybody loves hot men. Don't get me wrong. I mean, who doesn't? But I don't think they have to deal with the jealousy thing to the extent that women do. And when they do, it's just, I think it can be pretty easy to dismiss. I think for women, the jealousy thing is valid, and like I said before, I think that because society is progressing, we don't have to hyper focus on that, and we don't have to think about it that hard. So, in turn, men, I think it's easier for them to just let it fucking go. Because I think a lot of the times, even if there is jealousy, there's going to be way more men kissing that hot guy's ass and uplifting that guy. I think I've seen that more. I've seen that more personally. And the halo effect is real. I mean, I think it's real for both men, both attractive men and women, but I think it applies more to men for sure. And I have a bone to pick. I want to point out something very important. I just think it's really funny that whenever we have conversations around pretty privilege, the conversations are always centered around women. And, women shouldn't complain about the disadvantages of being beautiful and like why are you so obsessed with yourself? It's granted some bitches are, right? Like granted that. But why are we centering this conversation on women when beautiful men benefit off pretty privilege the most out of anybody in society, especially white men, especially white beautiful men? Like 6'5", blue eyes, finance guy. Like there's songs about beautiful white men. Like they are the ones that really fucking benefit from this, from pretty privilege. So if we're gonna have a conversation about privilege, about pretty privilege, let's center it around those that are benefiting the most and why. Why? I mean, I think we all know the answer, but come on. I welcome a conversation around that. Please, please give me a breath of fresh air and leave women alone. Leave women alone. I mean, I know that I'm talking about women, but this podcast is for women, about women, for women. So, yeah, if we're going to have a widespread online conversation, let's fucking talk about the men. And why are they benefiting more than the women? And why is it being beautiful such a big thing for women? Why is that weight on us? Like why? I know the answers, but that's a conversation for another fucking day. Also, pretty privilege looks so different, not only amongst genders, but amongst races. And obviously, pretty privilege favors white men and white women second. And if we're going to talk about the downsides of being attractive or pretty privilege, let's talk about it in this lens, in this context, because drawing comparisons is sometimes necessary and it puts things into perspective. So let's talk about attention from men, right? And how it looks like if you're white, if you're a white woman, versus if you are a brown or a black woman. White women, unless you are Eastern European, don't get fetishized. In fact, you are praised and probably wanted more amongst men of all races, right? Like white women are the beauty standard. So if the downside is unwanted male attention, which non conventionally attractive women deal with too, but it looks differently sometimes, oftentimes for attractive women. Let's say you're dealing with that because you're attractive. Women of color are going to deal with being fetishized and more often being disrespected because of their race. And sometimes, a lot of the times, men are going to feel more entitled to you because they see you as even more of an object because you're a woman, and on top of that, you are a woman of color. But yeah, these conversations are not just black and white, they are very gray, very nuanced, and they involve a lot of intersectionality as well. I mean, if you are beautiful and you are a queer person, or let's say you are trans, a trans woman, like the shit you're gonna have to deal with for being an attractive trans woman are so different than the things you're gonna have to deal with if you are an attractive cis woman. It's just there's so many conversations to have and there's so many ways of dissecting this. You can't just throw out a blanket statement and be pissed or be bothered just for nothing. Like I do understand why people are bothered at women complaining about the disadvantages of pretty privilege, but I think it's legitimate why they're bothered, and it's because those statements that they're mad about are blanket statements, and there's just so many deeper things that need to be addressed and talked about. And if you take away race, gender, um, sexual orientation, like all these things, if you take away these things, there's no downsides to being attractive, really. There's not going to be that many downsides because all the downsides are rooted in oppression and discrimination. period. Period. The way that the treatment I get from the world manifests and the way men treat me manifests in comparison to white women is just so different. It's so, so different. And I cannot imagine what it's like for women of other races and darker skinned women and trans women. Like it just varies, right? It's a spectrum. But I have been I don't date white men. I have before though. I have before and I don't date them because when I have, it's just like they are going to say something about me being Latina and they're going to try and fuel some sort of stereotype. And I get this from men of color as well, but I'm way more lenient with men of color because I just do it back to them and it's kind of like a running joke. So I really don't take it that serious. But when it's sometimes it should be though. Sometimes it should be. If they're actually serious and they're not just joking, then I think it should be taken seriously. But for the most part, I think with men of color, it's a hit or miss. Sometimes they mean it and that's bad, and sometimes they're just playing around, and I think it's forgivable. But with white men, neither of those are okay, bitch. Don't fucking play with me. Don't fucking play with me. Even if it's a joke, if you're doing any sort of fetishizing as a white person, get the fuck out of my face. Get the fuck out of my fucking face. Like, it's just so fucking annoying. And I mean, I've gotten it from white guys that I've talked to, and I just can't. Like, that's why I just can't date white men. Like, it's not it's vanilla's not really a favorite flavor of mine. Did I enjoy it when I had it? Maybe. Like, yeah. The few times that I've had it, I've enjoyed it. It served its purpose for the time, but I just don't appreciate the intent behind it and the way it makes me feel. Like, it just makes me feel not good about myself. It really does make me feel like a fucking piece of meat. And I don't think it's funny. Like, if you're white, it's just the joke is not gonna work. It's not funny. Also, a lot of the time, these white guys, they actually mean it. Like, more than the men of color, more often than not. Like, they actually are fetishizing you. So it's not fun. It's not fun. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. And more often than not, these white men will fetishize you for being Latina, Black, Asian, whatever. And then they'll turn around and be with a white woman. Like, seriously. Like, they'll take a white woman seriously. They'll marry the white woman while they're fetishizing the minority women. And that's just a tale that's old as, what's the saying? A tale old as time? Not sure how the saying goes, but yeah, so that's why I don't deal with white men. Again, no. I just hope that what we take away from this is the conversations that are actually important and with how different things look, pretty privilege looks amongst genders, how it's so different with men and women, with women of color. Pretty privilege cannot exist without having conversations about other forms of privilege and race, gender, all these other things. So I just hope that we are able to take that away from this conversation, that it's not just complaining about stupid fucking shit that doesn't really matter that much. And I'm not trying to minimize or invalidate struggles that certain people may deal with, especially women, right? Struggles that they may deal with because they are attractive, because these things do happen. But I don't know, the intent behind a lot of these videos that women are making just doesn't sit right with me. And I can never truly know the intent unless I talk to the person, right? But I can just derive context clues from facial expressions, from the way they're speaking, the word choice. And like I said before, I think that a lot of these women are just hyper focusing on beauty, specifically the beauty standards set by men and how they fit it and how good they feel about it. I don't know. Just the way things are phrased sometimes by these girls, it just feels Like they're just trying to prove that to themselves that they are hot. And the real root of the issue is misogyny, it's racism, it's how narrow the beauty standard is, it's how much focus we put on it. So I just hope we are able to grow and evolve and not focus on that. And a lot of that is inner work because I know for myself, I value beauty and it's given me more than what it's taken away. Like, in fact, I don't think it's taken away anything. Like, all the negative experiences that I deal with, I think being attractive plays a role. But the main reason I deal with them is because of misogyny. And if misogyny was eliminated from the equation, then I wouldn't be dealing with that. Period. Period. With most of these things. Well, probably all of them, honestly, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I mean, let's focus on the real issue here. Please, please. But I'm done with today's episode. I am done yapping for today. This kind of stressed me out a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if I like this episode. It kind of stressed me out. I'm sweating. It's so fucking hot in LA. I have to have my window open because the lighting is better. Oh, and I'm fucking sweating. So if you hear my fan in the background, I'm gonna try and get rid of that sound. But sometimes I'm fanning myself because it's so fucking hot. So yeah, and then this fucking pissed me off. So I always talk about shit that pisses me off. I need to talk about something that's happy all the time. But yeah, anyway, I'm done with today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be making a Patreon very, very soon. I'm going to be posting many exclusive mini episodes on top of the regular episodes. I'm also going to be posting the archives, which are episodes that I posted back in the 2020-2023 era. I'm not going to be publishing all of them, just some. I need to listen back and see if my digital footprint is not the worst in that specific episode, and then I'll probably be posting a few sporadically. I'll also be having room for discussions, conversations. If you bitches need advice, I'm not an expert, but I do think I give pretty decent advice sometimes. So feel free to reach out. I'm gonna make it, I think it's gonna be like $3 a month. I mean, I've already said it. It's not gonna be more than $3 a month for the first tier. And I'm gonna have only one tier for a while. So yeah, feel free to subscribe. I think I'm gonna do it next month. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Follow me on social media at Amy Sabalsa and at Salsa666 with 2 Z's on TikTok. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.